Hey everyone, Jim Coventry from Rotowire here, going live. You'll see me turning my head from side to side because I have Instagram over here. I have Twitter and YouTube over here. I'm right now going to try to retweet this out from the Rotowire page. Welcome everybody who's coming in. Definitely want to get this tweeted out so everybody can join us live. So just give me a moment to retweet this. Join us live now. Send that out, and we're ready to go here. We're going to talk some playoff weekend football, just Saturday games. Tomorrow, 11 Eastern, we'll be back. We'll do the Sunday games, so we'll go one step at a time here. If you have questions, definitely going to answer those for you here, and we are going to break these games down as well as I possibly can. So definitely ask me questions as we go. We are starting out the early game, of course, Bengals-Titans. Game kicks off about 75 minutes from now. So we're in great shape here. So first of all, expect a slower paced game here because first of all, these are the 30th and the 27th slowest teams in pace of play. So the under is not a bad proposition based on these teams' trends. So that's something that needs to be understood. Now, as we go into the individual matchups, let's start with the Bengals side of the ball. And again, I'm looking back and forth. I have two sets of audiences here. Glad to see everybody. So first of all, the Bengals started the season out as a run-heavy team. Joe Burrow was coming off the ACL injury. It was his first full season. He played 9 or so games last year. And Joe Mixon was clicking. However, the light went on later in the season. It was clear that Burrow was able to evade pressure in the pocket. He was comfortable on his knee, and they flipped to becoming a pass-first team, which was a very wise move by Zach Taylor because you have a young superstar quarterback. You have 2 superstar receivers, and that, to me, it's a no-brainer. Obviously, everybody talks about Jamar Chase. Yes, superstar. T. Higgins is too. And they are both alpha receivers. It's a great scenario and very smart that they went that route. Now, the Titans, they're an interesting defense. They're hard to figure out. In terms of numbers, they're roughly average against the run. They're average against the pass. The Bengals, in theory, could choose how they want to attack here. Now, we will hear on PFF that the Tennessee Titans have the 5th lowest pressure rate. I don't necessarily buy that. They don't blitz, so that may be part of that. But with their front 4, Jeffrey Simmons is a beast. But the front 4 is in entirety. They get a lot of pressure. And they can get pressure in obvious passing situations. And they strategically attack. Simmons could bust the inside up. They get pressure from the outsides. They can't pressure. And I do think the right side of the Bengals line, we know this. It's been problematic all year. Burrow's figured out a way to get it done. And again, he sidesteps pressure in the pocket, which is really useful for him. Now, understand also, the Titans rarely blitz. So they're going to have their bodies in the secondary. Now, the Titans are good at confusing opposing quarterbacks. They are the only team in the league that has at least 100 snaps of cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, and cover 4. And they can rotate in and out of those. Sometimes the quarterback doesn't know what the look is going to be. And a young quarterback like Burrow, look, he's a superstar, but he hasn't seen nearly everything yet. So this is not a great matchup that way. However, none of the Titans cornerbacks rate above 70 on PFF's grading system. Now, Janoris Jenkins, he typically lines up on the left cornerback, and he doesn't move. T. Higgins frequently lines up on the offensive right. To me, that matchup will be there much of the day. Christian Fulton's a very good cornerback, young cornerback, emerging. He's their best cornerback. He'll see a lot of Jamar Chase. I don't know that he has the speed to hang with Chase consistently. I think they'll shade help toward Chase. Chase is capable of a great game, but I think they could slow him by making him the primary stop point. Now, the Titans have struggled against the slot. Tyler Boyd's been very busy, been very solid. He's a very good receiver. So there's room for him to do well here as well. Now, understand this as well. The Titans are bottom 10 in yards allowed after the catch. Last week, Bengals struggled a little bit on offense with the Raiders. But the Raiders were like near the top of the league in yards after the catch allowed. So it was a matchup that wasn't quite as favorable for those great receivers. The cover 3 the Raiders ran was very useful at prohibiting yardage after the catch. But this week, they do have advantages with their great receivers, especially Chase and Higgins, to create a lot of yardage after the catch. So based on that, I'm warming up, and I decided I really like the over on Joe Burrow's passing prop of 282.5 yards. I think that's a very solid prop. I also like T. Higgins' yardage on the over. We never know for sure who they're going to do, but to me, he has the best matchup. My guess is they had to have analyzed that this week, and this is a way they're going to want to go. Now, Joe Mixon, he had a great first half, but they de-emphasized him in the second. If he had the knee injury, but again, since they emphasized the pass game, it's been a lot less about him. Now, Mixon has a great matchup in the receiving game. Tennessee's a tough run defense. Now, Mixon can get his, and if he gets work, he will be productive. But he does have opportunities in the pass game. So if you're looking for a prop on Mixon, you may be more likely to go over the receiving yardage. That may be the way to go. His rushing prop is 60.5. If he gets carries, he gets there. But if they fall behind, they may throw more than usual. So that makes that one is a little bit dangerous. Now, the Titans do play a lot of too high. We said they play cover 1, 2, 3, and 4. They mix up, but they still play a lot of the too high shells to try to keep the long plays. But you see, that's where the Bengals can beat you. We've talked about this already. The run after the catch, they don't need a bomb to beat you. They could beat you off a slant. They could beat you off a hitch. And these receivers are top level at getting yards after the catch. So overall, look, Burrow isn't as great as he's going to be, but he already is a very, very good NFL quarterback. And it's not like he's facing the 2000 Ravens here. He'll see some confusing looks, but he has been solid. Now, the Titans are very good against tight ends. Don't like CJ Uzomah here. And he's been very productive. He's been seeing targets, but I would be prone to bet the under here because this is a bad matchup for him. And if the Bengals have studied this, they are probably going elsewhere with the ball to the more optimal matchups. As I mentioned, the Titans on defense, they're going to create confusion. They're going to flip those looks between the coverages that they play. They're going to continue to vary their pass rush. They're going to try to optimize their rush on the right side of the Bengals line. They lost Riley Reif to the injury. Riley Reif wasn't that great. He's a better run blocker than a pass blocker at this late stage of his career, but it's a massive downgrade with Isaiah Prince there right now. They want to manufacture quick pressure on Burrow because if they can't get quick pressure when they're passing, they're in trouble because their corners do not match up well with the superstar receivers they have. The overall, like I said before, the interior pass rush is their strength. Now, the Bengals, along their offensive line, 4 of the 5 linemen are graded at 60 or below per PFF, so that's below average. Whereas the left tackle Jonah Williams is actually graded fairly well this year, but he's their one strength. And otherwise, I pretty much mentioned everything else here. I think I went over. So let's go to the other side of the ball. The Titans. The big question is Derrick Henry. We've heard he's expected to get a full workload here. We don't know for sure. We expect it. Probably happens. He has a plate and screws in his foot. What does that mean? Does it mean he's 100%? Does it mean that his cutting could be painful? They've activated him. It's a playoff game. We don't know for sure. There is more uncertainty than usual, I would think. Now, what I learned was football is the ultimate small sample size game, right? So everything's in small sample size. So we make these definitive observations on limited data. But Derrick Henry, in his last 3 week 1 games, the way he starts to see, to me, this is a week 1 game. He's been off for, 10 weeks? 17 for 58. I'm only going to go through the rushing yards. He's had some receiving yardage in there too. This year, 17 for 58, 3.5 yards a carry. 2020, 31 carries for $116, less than 4 yards a carry. In 2019, 19 carries for 84. He did score a touchdown on the ground on that one. He had a receiving score as well. But in the last 2 openers, he hasn't scored a touchdown either. Maybe it's just a small sample size, but maybe Henry's a bit of a slow starter. If he is, that is something to factor in here in looking at this game. maybe he gets rolling as he gets back into his game shape conditioning. Now, prior to the injury, he was one catch away from his career high, 18. He had that in 8 games. So Henry was really being used as a receiver. However, his receiving prop is 11.5 yards. Personally, and again, anytime I tell you a prop, think it through how you handicap it. I'll give you my angle on it. Don't necessarily agree with it. If you disagree with it, say, nah, throw that one out. I think Henry goes under 11.5 passing yards. Here's why. He's coming off the foot injury. Do they want to run him on pass routes, which are the least effective part of his game? My guess is no. You're going to run him where he's comfortable. But why put him out in space where he's less comfortable on a foot that's probably not 100%? That's my theory on it. That's why I like the under on him there. Now, also, before Henry's injury, it was interesting. Neil, hey, good afternoon to you as well. Thank you for commenting. Anybody has a comment, feel free to throw those in there. So when we look at Henry's last 2 games before the injury, he had 29 carries for 86 against the Chiefs, and then 28 for 68 against Indy with no touchdowns. He came off a bender of like 5 massive games, and he was really slowed down those last couple games. So again, between the plate and the screws at his foot, his slow starts typically, and then the way he slowed down toward the end, it just makes me a little bit concerned. I can't make any definitive judgment as to what Derrick Henry is today. He may come out and get 400 yards. Well, not 400 yards, but 200 yards and 3 scores. He could do that. I'd be a little bit more nervous. Cincinnati, ultimately, they lost Larry Ogunjobi last week, defensive tackle. Now, he didn't grade out that fantastically, but he was a good run defender. Now, BJ Hill will be in at tackle taking over. He played well this year. He actually had a better pressure rate than Ogunjobi for the pass game. He should be an adequate run defender. Overall, since he's a better run defense than they are a pass defense. And I think A.J. Brown, I don't know what to expect from Julio Jones. None of us do. We don't know how healthy he is. We don't know how much he's lost. He looked good in the last game he played. I believe week 18, he looked good. It was against an easier defense for sure. Now, the secondary for the Bengals. So Chidobe Awuzie, who used to be with the Cowboys, he graded out at 84, which is an excellent coverage grade. He's an outside corner. And Mike Hilton, who used to be with the Steelers, he graded in the slot as a 75, which is above average. So they're not, he's not great, but he's good. My guess is if they choose to move a corner, if A.J. Brown's on the outside, they get Awuzie on him. My guess, could be wrong. And then when he's in the slot, Hilton will be there anyway. A.J. Brown is still A.J. Brown. He's capable of breaking any defense. One of the best receivers we have after the catch. They get him on in-breaking routes. That's the way to maximize his use, and they've shown the propensity to do that. So my guess is they will try to get him on in-breaking routes here. And again, back to Julio, I just don't have enough on him with Tannehill to make a responsible projection as to how many targets he gets, where those targets are at. You put me on a number projection, I would say 45 yards, but there's not really much to go on. Now, the tight ends is a place to attack typically. So Cincinnati is not great against tight ends. It's a liability. But my guess is between Anthony Ferkser and Jeff Swaim, yes, they have a great matchup. But I think I'd rather be throwing the ball to A.J. Brown and Julio Jones into those tight ends. And they split work too. So betting a prop on the tight end, it makes sense in the matchup. But from a game planning standpoint, I just don't know how they go in this game and say, you know what, we want to bury them with Ferkser and Swaim. When you have 3 weapons with Henry, Brown, and Julio, my guess is in a playoff game, you go that route. So that's why I would just stay away from the tight ends, and one could trump the other. So that's something to consider, okay? Otherwise, Cincinnati's defensive weakness is typically wide receiver twos. So if you feel favorable that Julio Jones is in great football shape and ready to go, The matchup for him is the best because if Awuzie moves over to A.J. Brown on the outside, then the far, far less corners are going to be on Julio, which would be an advantage that way. Again, he's a very difficult player to handicap. Now, the Bengals overall do have a low pressure rate aside from Trey Hendrickson, and Hendrickson has been cleared to play this game. Again, B.J. Hill taking over for Ogunjobi had 5.5 sacks on very limited snaps. So that actually could help. And if the Bengals can get the Titans in the obvious passing situations, Ryan Tannehill is not the same quarterback when he's under pressure. And if the Bengals decide to bring pressure schemes, they can make things difficult here. Overall, the Bengals, in terms of a game plan, it's a tough one. I already mentioned what I think they should do with the corners. Awuzie on Brown on the outside. When he's in the inside, you got Hilton there already, so you're kind of fine. I think if Derrick Henry's in, I think you have to stack. I think you got to put an extra body there because Henry's the engine of the machine. If you slow that down, it knocks him off script. I'd rather take my chances with Tannehill than with Henry. And the Titans will run the ball even if they're behind. So they've shown that. So those are my breakdowns on both sides of the ball. Overall in this game with trends, Joe Burrow's had multiple TDs in 4 of the last 5, 300 yards in 4 of the last 6. Mentioned earlier, I like his passing prop. Joe Mixon, no touchdowns in 4 of the last 5. Combined yards, fewer than 86 in 5 of 6 games. So for Mixon, his 85.5 rushing receiving yards is his prop. The under on that is not a bad bet. And I mentioned earlier, I like T. Higgins over on the yards, and I like him at DFS as well. I think, Higgins is probably the best player I like DFS-wise. If you're going to go away from the high-end quarterbacks, Burrow is a reasonable choice. I like Stafford better this weekend if you're playing the 4-game slate. Obviously, if you're paying up, you've got the 2 quarterbacks in the Bills-Chiefs game. But Burrow is not a bad because of the run after the catch that's allowed. He's not a bad DFS option here either because they could, if they get a lot of production after the catch, they could go off there. In terms of the Titans, without Derrick Henry, trends are kind of tough because we don't know how the offense will be with him in there. A.J. Brown in his last 3 games, he's had 6, 5, and 16 targets. So the targets all over the board. If he gets a ton of targets, he goes ballistic. He can also produce on few, score in 2 of the last 3. Now, Julio did go 5 for 58 and a touchdown and 9 targets in the season finale against the Texans. It was his best game since week 2. So, but we're not sure how he actually is. All right, so that's my pick on this game. The line moved up to 4 the last I checked. I do like taking the points here. I think 4 is a good amount of points. The Titans, I get it. The Titans don't get respect. They're not getting respect on their home field. Now, here's one thing. I want to dismiss this. All I hear people saying are, the Titans had the bye. They've got a week of rest. Okay, so did the Bengals. The Bengals took off week 18. Jamar Chase played about a quarter or less. Nobody else played. All the main stars sat. That was a bye week for them. And also, then they came back into playoffs last week, and if they had any rust, they knocked it off. If Tennessee has rust, this is their game to knock it off. So I think that argument at the bye and the time off, that's ridiculous because Cincinnati took their own bye in week 18. So understand that if you're factoring that in, I think the judge throws that one out, right? All right. Packers and 49ers. Cannot wait to see that one either. Another great game here. If anybody has questions or comments, just go ahead and pop them in. Be happy to talk to anybody. The game I just finished. The Bengals and the Titans. Now we go on to the Packers, 49ers. All right, so first of all, the wind chill. The weather got a little bit better. The wind chill was supposed to be -5. The whole game is like -1 right now for the anticipated through the game through NFLweather.com. Temperature about 11, 9-mile-an-hour winds. So it's going to be a very cold game. The ball will be hard. It's Green Bay's home field, not insurmountable at all, right? Look, 49ers are a phenomenal running team, and I'll talk about them in a minute. It's a great weather situation for a West Coast team. If they ever have to go into a cold venue, you run the ball. So it's kind of a great scenario. It's not this team from the West that's throwing 50 times a game. And so that's great. And Neil, let's see. Yep, I know. I'm so excited. Cannot tell you how excited I'm about these games here. Now, also, though, this 49ers-Packers game, slow paced. We have the 32nd and the 28th slowest paced team. So the first game, which we said was slow, this one projects even slower. Now, there could be more explosive plays in this game, which could change the script. But again, overall, slow-paced game. Last week, the 49ers against the Cowboys, they ran 38 times to 25 passes. Now, if you remember back 2 years ago when the Packers and the 49ers played in the playoffs, Jimmy Garoppolo threw 8 pass attempts because they ran the ball down their throats. I know the teams are a little bit different, but fundamentally, they're really not. I don't think Garoppolo's going to throw 8 times. I think it's more than that. But that scenario is still in play that they could run the ball as successfully as they did. Honestly, Raheem Mostert had that great game of his life. Overall, give me Eli Mitchell and Deebo Samuel as running backs all day long because of the different things they can do. All right, that's it. Let's break this game down. First meeting. Let's talk about some of the first meeting because some people will see. It was a great game. And the 49ers could have won it. They had a lead. Kyle Juszczyk scored on an early down. They needed to score, but they left too much time on the clock. Rodgers came down. They got a field goal. They won at the gun. That was that game. Now, Packers got off to a big lead early, and then Trey Lance scored a touchdown right at the halftime gun, and then it was close in the second half. In the first meeting, the 49ers were their pass heaviest on early downs all season. They threw 73% of the time on early downs. Like I said, by far their highest rate of the year. But Trey Sermon was the running back in that game. And we knew from early in the season when they were deactivating him that he was not a system fit for them. And so that they played that game with Sermon as their lead back. Also, Deebo Samuel was not being used regularly as a running back. Brandon Ayuk was still in the doghouse playing partial snaps as opposed to the 90+% he's seen down the stretch. So it's a completely different 49ers team than the one that had that close loss in Green Bay early in the season. Now, the 49ers should have excellent success on the ground. Green Bay is designed on defense to stop the pass. They don't put a lot of attention to run. Kenny Clark's very good in the middle. Devondre Campbell is a linebacker. Very good. The 49ers come out with run formations. They run different concepts and schemes to get their running backs into space and into gaps. They will set up the defense to over pursue and run cutbacks against it. Whatever formation defensively the Packers come out in, Kyle Shanahan will have ready answers for run play calls to run. There's a scenario where the Packers may set their outside edges outside the 49ers tackles and say, you're not running outside on us. They will start the play outside, and then they will have a cutback lane, and they will gash the defense. And with Kyle Juszczyk in there, Devondre Campbell could be eliminated by the blocking there. So this is not a running attack that you can come in and say, we're going to do this. They're going to be stopped. I don't think there's a scenario where that running game gets slowed down here. So there's a big advantage here for both Samuel and Mitchell as runners. Now, I love Eli Mitchell's over prop as a runner here. I got it at 76.5. It was up to 80.5 yesterday. I still think he's a lock for 95 yards. There's never a lock. You'll understand. Anything can happen. But for the most part, it's a very good scenario for him here. Deebo is tough to call because there's games they may use him more as a receiver. He's going to have a good game. It's just a matter of how that's going to happen. So, again, in terms of betting a prop, a DFS, sure, because he gets done either way. It benefits your fantasy lineup. So that's fine there. Garoppolo, in terms of passing, he's got the thumb injury. He got it numbed up during the game last week. It worked well for a half. And his shoulder got hurt a little bit. It's going to be cold. They'll throw some. But my guess is they're not airing it out. That's not their goal. I think George Kittle, who went for like 7 for 92, I think in the early season game, they do weaponize him because you keep him as an inline blocker. And the Packers can't put pass coverage on him because he is such a mauling blocker and he'll do it so frequently. You can't lose that defender to that. And so they have to play Kittle as an inline tight end. And I think that Shanahan will scheme him and plays off of that. And with Kittle's run after the catch ability, I love his over prop here, which is in the 49-ish yard range. I think 3 catches would get him over that because of the yardage he can get after the catch. And especially if the Packers have to creep players down into the box, that benefits Kittle greatly. So I like that. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo would have consistent success. However, what I do think happens here is that when we watch this, so as I think back through this, they're going to get the ball to their receivers at or behind the line of scrimmage off of rub routes and picks. I think the majority of those passes, other than the ones that Kittle off of play action, are going to be less than 5 yards downfield. They're going to get in the ball before the corners engage. They're going to take away some of the advantages that Green Bay pass defense has, similar to the way they've handled the Rams in the past. So I definitely think that happens here. Now, another important personnel usage point is Mohamed Sanu was the receiver in that first matchup. They come in with Jawan Jennings now. Jennings is a better receiver, but he's a fantastic blocker. And for what the 49ers do in both the run and the pass game, they need their receivers to be blockers. So he is a very important addition here. So be sure to watch for that. So play action will be useful when they want to use it here. The other thing is the 49ers can take 7, 8, 10 minutes off the clock on drives and keep the Packers offense on the sideline, which is the way they would like to play it. They don't want to get into a shootout here. Both teams can explosively move the ball in their own way, but understand that this scenario is on the board that they can run less plays, but both have very big offensive games. Now, the Packers game planning, like I said, I think, regardless of how they come out, Shanahan's going to have an answer in the run game for them, and they're going to have success there. What the Packers need to hope for is their offense can get out to a big lead and take the 49ers out of that comfort zone of running the ball, at which point the 49ers would be in grave danger because Green Bay rushes the passer extremely well, and they cover very well in the back end. It would not be a good matchup for Jimmy Garoppolo at all if he had to carry the offense. I think if they get behind, they won't do this. But if I were Kyle Shanahan, if they fell behind, I would consider putting Trey Lance in the game. They would never do it, but I would consider it because at that point, he would be able to create some explosiveness out of read option stuff, which would be something that could work against the Packers. Don't expect that to happen, though. Me as a coach would do that. Now, the Packers offensively. So the 49ers play a zone defense, and they're very good. Their safeties are very good. Jaquiski Tartt, Jimmy Ward, they're big hitters too. Well, their corners are bad, but the way they play the zone, they protect those corners. And so, look, Adams going to get his catches. And bet the over on the receptions for Adams, which was 7.5 when I got it. It's juiced up a little bit, but I can't see a world he doesn't catch 10 passes in this game. He is going to be consistently open quickly, and Aaron Rodgers is very good at getting the ball to the open man right away. And the 49ers, we saw it last week. When Nick Bosa went out of that game against Dallas, they were still bringing a heavy pass rush with just 4 without blitzing. So that is in play here as well. And so Rodgers is going to get the ball out, and Adams is going to get his. But I think that those safeties are going to be up. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is doubtful here. That's a big knock to their downfield passing game. Also add in the frozen ball. Rodgers could still throw it deep. He's Aaron Rodgers, but it's a factor. And I think if those safeties creep up more, Devontae's going to get his catches. He's going to get his yardage. He's going to get hit a lot. So I think the consistent success may not be as upside as we see. He's still Devontae Adams. He's still going to crush, and he'll go over the 94 receiving yards as well. But I don't know that he has a 200-yard and 2-touchdown game, which he's capable of doing. I think they could limit him to 120, 130. And if they do that, they actually do okay for themselves. Now, the running game, Aaron Jones had good success on the ground in that first matchup. The 49ers, after an in-season injury to Javon Kinlaw, they lost him for the season. For whatever reason, the configuration and alignment they put together, their pass rush and their run defense have become nasty. Very difficult to run on. Now, the Packers offensive line, they have traditionally been great in pass protection. This year, not as much. The grades on the linemen have gone down. Now, David Bakhtiari may play. He played in Week 18, limited snaps. They're trying to get him back. He's still questionable. But I don't know what he is at this point. I don't know that he's 100% at this point. And even if he is, I still think overall they may move Nick Bosa to the other side. And they may just attack. So overall, I still think that the 49ers can get a lot of pressure here. Now, Aaron Jones, it's a tougher matchup for him. 49ers are very good against receiving backs, so I don't necessarily like the props on Jones as a runner or receiver. A.J. Dillon, I know he's a big back, but I think the 49ers with their physical style, I think they match up well with him. I don't think this is a defense he can just run over. Can he be productive? Certainly. I just don't think it's a big game if they use him a lot here. Now, I know I'm sounding a bit negative on the Packers here, and that's not my point. Aaron Rodgers is an elite quarterback, and he can find – Allen Lazard has been playing well lately. Aaron Rodgers can take his time and to pick apart a defense definitively, and he will do that. He'll take patient drives, and as long as he doesn't make mistakes, they are going to be right there the whole way. If not in the lead, they're going to be right there because that's the way they are with playing. Matt LaFleur calls a great game, plays to Rodgers' strengths. Rodgers played two of the best seasons of his career in the last couple of years. We expect more of the same there. Overall, it's a matter of if the Packers can manipulate the 49er safeties in that zone, try to get them out of position on occasion, whether it's play action, whether it's a multiple route concepts, they're going to want to try to do that to expand out the passing game for Rodgers. Ultimately, I love taking the 5.5 points here because I think that this game is close regardless. The Packers, of course, rate the edge to win. They're the better overall team. But if the 49ers run game, and if they play it closer with a lead, that running game may keep them from getting in trouble. Now, Kyle Shanahan does not do well with leads. We've seen that time and again, including last week when they were fortunate to hang on against Dallas. So I love the 5.5 points. I could see a world where you take the 49ers on the money line, but the Packers, to me, it's kind of a little less than a coin flip, but it's close enough where you could go either side here. In terms of the over and under, it depends. I probably more lay off of that one because both teams want to run slow paced, and that's important to understand. But if the explosive plays hit, the game could spiral quickly. Again, if you were going to bet an over, it would probably be on the Packers team points because if this game goes over the total, it's probably because the Packers pushed that envelope. All right, let's see. We got a question here. Fournette is right now, he's expected to play, and I will look up on the Rotowire site here very quickly and see what we can find out for you. But I think they have to announce that by 4 Eastern today. So let's check the news for you here. Latest. There is no updated report on the Rotowire site, and we expect Fournette to play, but they don't have to activate him from injured reserve until an hour and 15 minutes from now. But the expectation is he plays. Just check the Rotowire news page. It's free, so you can check that. But that within an hour, if you check that, you will have definitive word as to how that shakes out. In terms of other props on this game, let's see. Eli Mitchell, I said over 80 yards. Laying off the quarterback. Under on Jimmy Garoppolo's passing yardage. It's like in the 230s, 231. But also, there's a 30.5 passing attempt prop. I think the under on that is pretty safe money. I don't think Garoppolo is throwing it 30 times. I don't think there are many scenarios where that happens. I think if they get that far behind, again, there's a world where Trey Lance will come in. I'm not predicting that, but it's possible there. Other props from this game. Those are what I had. Devontae Adams over on the receptions, over on the yardage. Your choice. Both are good. Kittle over on the passing reception yards. I'm not necessarily on the receptions because he could get it done on 3 catches, but depending on game, he may not get the 5 catches to put him over the prop. Outside of that, so again, back to the Cincinnati game. Tennessee rates a slight edge to be able to win. I will take the 4 points with the Bengals for sure. Could see either team winning that. Personally, on a money line, I have a small bet on the Bengals. I'm betting on the quarterback, but again, that one's too close to call, but the points are great. This game, similar deal. Take the 5.5 points. Be happy with that. Enjoy the game. If you're going to bet on a team, cases for either one. Packers rate a better edge to win, being at home, having the quarterback. But there's plenty of worlds where the 49ers are able to cash in with that rushing attack. If anybody has any questions, I will answer them. So type them in, and I'll be glad to answer them. I'm looking back and forth as always. I got Instagram over here. I got Twitter and YouTube over here. I will be back tomorrow at 11 Eastern. I will go over the Buccaneers and Rams game, the Bills and the Chiefs game. I'll be on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports today from 1 to 3 Eastern round before kickoff. So I'll be out with Alan Soslowski, and we'll be talking then. Everybody have a great day.